Hey friends, welcome to Learn to Dev. This video is about the useState hook in React. If your application needs some sort of state that can change through some interaction like a button click, then useState will help. Here we have a very simple application that I have generated from this command here, npx create react app. This creates a basic React application, and if you use the command npm starts after you created the project, then it'll start localhost 3000, a development server, which updates when you save the code. So here we have a description and a few buttons, plus minus change name. We haven't implemented any functionality for these buttons, you can see here, and let's try it out on the change name function. Before that, we have Steve Rogers here hard-coded, so let's make that into a variable, and we'll plug in the name like so, and we can make the onClick function that responds when we click on this button. So let's call it onChangeName, and let's change it to another name, and we'll hook it up to the button, and let's try to change the name. For some reason it's not working. Is it actually changing the variable? Let's console log it, and if we click on the button, it actually is changing the name. However, over here it's staying as Steve Rogers. Why is that? Well, let's do a console log on the outside. We'll just say hello, I am app. So it says, so this is being console logged at the beginning. This is because this is being rendered. So this application code is being executed, and then it's going to return this JSX, which is the things you can see on the screen. However, if you click on change name here, you can see that this is being run, is correct. However, this is not being run. So that means that this JSX here, or whatever you can see on the screen here, is not being re-rendered. And that means name is not being changed from Steve Rogers to Loki. So now here we need to use the useState function in order to change the name. So how do you do that? Well, we can use the React useState function. We'll just say const variable for now. And we can do this because we have imported a React. We can do react.useState. However, it's more common to use it like this, to import useState like so, which is object destructuring. So this useState is part of React. So this is how you access it if we just import React. However, because we used object destructuring here, we can remove this part. Okay, so useState returns two things in an array. So it'll return something like this, which is the current state in the first element of the array, and a setter function to change that state. How we can access it is we can do variable 0 or variable 1. However, it's more common to use array destructuring here. So it'll be current state and the set current state function. And because we're doing the name here, we can just say name and set name, just like so. useState accepts a default value. So our default value here is Steve Rogers, like that. And we'll just put it in here like so. And we can remove this. Okay. So now what we can do is on this button click, this executes on change name, and here we can just set name to Loki. And then we can remove that. And then we can see that if we change name, it's actually changing it to Loki. So here you can see that hello I am app is being console logged, which means the whole app function is being executed, and this is being re-rendered with a new name. So let's try that with the plus and minus buttons here to change the favorite number. So we'll follow the same principles as above here, and we'll just call it number for simplicity and set number. And the current default state, we'll just say it's 7. When we want to click on the plus, we want to increment that by 1. So we have an onClick function here on increment. And same thing for the minus button, except this time it'll decrement when we click it. Okay, let's define these functions. So for on increment, we want to change the current number, and then we minus it by 1. Then we use this function to set it, to set the state. Same thing for on decrement, except we want to plus this. So same thing for on decrement. This time we want to decrement it by 1. And we can change this into the variable, so just like so. And now we can see that we can change it, and it's being re-rendered. And we change the name, and there you go. Okay, what if we want to increment this number and we want to do that again because of some calculations that we do in between? Now we expect this number to be incremented by 2, because number plus 1 and number plus 1 here. Now if you do plus here, so we start from 7, we will expect that to be 9. It's only incrementing by 1 every time we click it. Why is this? Well, number here is using whatever is being rendered right now. So what this means is that this is 11, and this is plus 1, so that'll be 12. And this will also be 11 plus 1 is also 12. So this means that we need a way to make sure that the number is being updated in between these set number calls. So now, instead of passing a number into set number, we can also pass in a function. So that function is going to be like that. And this function can take in a previous state. And that previous state, just like that. So let's copy paste that. And you can see that now we'll expect this to be 13. So let's save that. Plus and 13. So it's now correctly incrementing by 2 every time. So now, previous state here, 19 plus 1 is equal to 20. And now this previous state here will be 20. And now plus 1 equals 21. So it is now correctly being incremented by 2 every time. So you can see that useState can work on strings and numbers, but it can also work with arrays and objects. So let's turn this into a character object with the name and the favorite number as properties, just like that. We can comment these lines out and use the useState hook. Let's put the object as a default state. So name is Steve Rogers and number is 7. Now to access this object, we can use the dot operator, character.name and character.number, or we can use object destructuring here. So name and number from the character object. Maybe we won't need this anymore. Let's comment out these setters. And now we can use the new setter set character. When we do decide to update the object, we cannot only update one property, or we cannot only update its name. So we have Steve Rogers right now. If we change the name, it becomes Loki. That's correct. But the favorite number is now gone. This is because the new object will fully override the old object, so we don't have the number property anymore. So here we need the previous state parameter and the spread syntax on previous state. And now we return that new object. So the spread syntax means that all of the previous state properties will be there, and only the name Loki will override the old name. So we can see that it is now correct. It's not overriding the favorite number. We can do the same for on increments, but here we just change the number instead of the name. And on decrement as well. -1 there instead of +1. And we can see that that works. The React documentation says to split this object state into multiple state variables. So separate name and number because it becomes simpler. So let's revert back to the original. Some other things to know about useState is that you can only use hooks inside React functions and not regular JavaScript functions like some function over here or in React classes. You cannot use them in if statements or inside loops. We can see that ESLint is complaining here. ESLint helps us to detect errors in the code. And we can see that useState is being used in a function here. We don't want that. useState is being used conditionally in an if statement. We do not want that. And useState is in a loop. We don't want that. Only put useState at the top level of the function. This is because React needs them to run in the same order to preserve the state behind the scenes.